Hey guys, Super Horror Bro Mike here, and in today's video we explore haunted animatronic halls as we take a look at the story of Five Nights at Freddy's fan game, Juniors, with a walkthrough of the main story, a theory as to what the cryptic ending is all about, and a look at the various animatronics and their designs. This is the story of FNAF Juniors Explained, so sit back, relax, and let's get started. The setup for Junior's story isn't made crystal clear in the game, but it is nicely summarised on the game's download page over on the website GameJolt. Here it is suggested that we are filling the shoes of an investigator who is sent to Junior's restaurant after a series of slip-ups occurred leading to its closure. The investigation company feels that something is afoot, and it's up to our unfortunate hero to uncover what that something is. Suffice to say, they probably didn't think they'd be dealing with haunted killer animatronics. While sleeping, the investigator, who for now I will simply refer to as the protagonist, finds himself in a dark limbo-like dimension. He quickly begins to panic, believing himself to be dead. At that moment, a small white bear emerges from the darkness and introduces himself. This is PAULBEAR, and he is a passive spirit who has taken refuge in this dark place, a place he refers to as the Barrens. The Barrens are a limbo dimension between life and death. A giant brain hangs in the sky above, suggesting the Barrens are connected directly with our character's subconscious after they entered JR's to begin their investigation. There are familiar sights to be found here. Freddy, Bonnie and Chica cutouts, and the puppet emerging from a prize box. We also see a mysterious arcade cabinet, though for now it is out of order. PAULBEAR assures the protagonist that he can send him back to the real world whenever he wants, but asks for some help with some unfinished business in return. PAULBEAR is unable to complete this task himself as he is dead. By taking care of this unfinished business, he will be able to move over to the afterlife. PAULBEAR even offers to help out in our investigation, and so a partnership begins, the protagonist agreeing to meet PAULBEAR once more the following night. And so the investigation at Juniors commences, with our protagonist monitoring paranormal activity at the restaurant over a security camera feed from the relative safety of the maintenance room. PAULBEAR operates as a ghost in the machine, able to send us messages through our laptop, which provides survival tips as a ghostly figure moves from one animatronic to the next. This ghost girl is never named, and so it is impossible to know for sure her true identity. It seems her presence in the restaurant is the unfinished business PAULBEAR was talking about, and the reason why Juniors closed down to begin with. He tells us he has been hiding from this ghost, who will take his soul if she locates him. And so, a mission to exorcise this malicious spirit commences. Each night, the player must identify which of Junior's animatronics are haunted as the ghost moves from one to the next. The way we identify a haunting is by paying close attention to our camera feed and watching for telltale signs. For example, if an animatronic enters a room and the lights begin to flicker, or a human handprint appears on the camera lens, then we know the ghost is present. However, the ghost has a few tricks up her sleeve. One of these is to inhabit the marionette, who does not appear on cameras but instead can be heard by her music box when we turn on the audio function. Likewise, the ghost can haunt Balloon Baby, who only appears as a glitching icon on our laptop screen. This laptop screen shows the stability of the animatronics, and when this percentage drops to 0, it results in a game over and very bad news for our hapless hero. To avoid a sticky end, we must periodically call non-haunted animatronics down the conveyor belt to the maintenance room and then repair them by installing a fresh battery pack. If we guess the incorrect animatronic when trying to locate the ghost, then the values of these stability percentages drop across the board, so correctly picking who the spirit haunts is super important. Now let's take a quick look at each of the animatronics encountered during the first 5 nights of our investigation. FNAF Juniors has a menu page accessible after completing the game with detailed character descriptions for each of the terrifying designs. These read as follows. Freddy. This iteration of Freddy is much taller and lankier than most. He's rocking his iconic top hat and bow tie, but both are outfitted with a plaid material. Bonnie. Similar to Freddy, this iteration of Bonnie is much lankier than most other designs. He's been given a pair of stylish glasses and his colour has shifted from a dark indigo to a tealish shade of blue. Chica. This iteration of Chica is not themed around food, but rather sleeping. She dons a nightgown, a sleeping cap, and her cupcake has a binky. How adorable. This pirate-themed iteration of Foxy is withered to maintain that iconic look that everyone loves. We wanted to push that theme a little further with the inclusion of lots and lots of piercings. Balloon Baby. This iteration of Balloon Boy isn't a boy at all, he's actually a baby, hence the name. In an attempt to capture that eerie vibe, his face was made more doll-like. As always, he's holding his balloons and wearing the iconic propeller hat. The Marionette. With her lengthy, spindly body, this iteration of a marionette or puppet is more ragdoll-like. She's also been given a nose and a set of ears to add to that creepy doll look that made her so iconic in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. The further into Juniors we progress, the more of its mysterious backstory is revealed. We get some of these reveals delivered through a series of old VHS tapes, which our protagonist uncovers after completing certain shifts. The first tape is labelled Episode 1. On this tape is a claymation animation. It shows Freddy walking up to a door labelled Beware the Mangle. Freddy holds an animatronic arm in his hands, which he then presents to a shadowy figure as it emerges from the room. The second VHS tape is labelled Episode 2. This time, Bonnie and Freddy sit at a table in the pizzeria. Freddy pieces together a drawing of Mangle, as if assembling it. Mangle then seems to speak to Freddy and influence him. We then see the ghost inhabiting Freddy transfer over to Bonnie. After this transfer completes, it is Bonnie who now delivers an animatronic appendage to the Mangle's door. The tape ends with a photograph of Bonnie and Freddy laughing together, this suggesting they are both now under the Mangle's control. The third tape is labelled I Know You Are With Him, this telling us that the ghost girl is aware of the protagonist and his partnership with PAULBEAR. On this tape we see footage of Chica sound asleep and dreaming of pizza. Bonnie ominously peers over the foot of her bed and Chica's dreams alter as the ghost transfers into her body. Chica then completes the Mangle's construction by bringing it to the final endo piece. Now before viewing the final tape, we should take a moment to catch up on the story unfolding between the protagonist and his new acquaintance PAULBEAR. After relaying the information found on these tapes, PAULBEAR deduces that the Mangle is a new body the ghost is trying to build for herself. This body will allow her to become far more powerful and therefore harder to stop. With the protagonist getting ready to finish his investigation, time is of the essence. The duo must stop the ghost before the Mangle finishes construction. To do this, they decide to take the ghost by surprise by sneaking into her lair located in the restaurant's basement. This brings us to the fourth and final VHS tape. This one is labelled Falling Down. Its footage is symbolic, showing us children's drawings of various animatronics at Juniors as they are tainted by a black goop. Some of these drawings are bloodied, suggesting that much like the other Fazbear establishments, murderous activity went down at Juniors. We then witness the three iconic animatronics, Bonnie, Chica and Freddy, standing with their offerings as the Mangle descends from above. These tapes symbolise how the Mangle takes pieces from each of the animatronics under the control of the ghost, leaving them in a withered state. PAULBEAR knows of a secret entrance leading into the basement, and so our protagonist takes it into the heart of darkness for a final showdown with the Ghost Girl. Longtime FNAF fans will recognise this setting and the gameplay mechanics. They are lifted from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. This telling us the location of Junior's is the same location as FNAF 2, and therefore also the same location as the original restaurant, Fredbear's Family Diner. Important points to keep in mind as we move into the theory portion of this video. In this basement we encounter the withered animatronics, their parts used to create the mangle midway through this night. As with FNAF 2, when these animatronics show up, we must hide behind the Bonnie mask. Balloon Baby can also disable our flashlight if we don't keep an eye on him, and this flashlight is needed to keep Foxy at bay as he appears down the hallway. Finally, the music box must be wound to avoid a nasty jump scare, courtesy of the puppet. After these animatronics have merged with the mangle, she takes over the fight during phase 2, in combination with the ghost who appears on various camera feeds in an attempt to break the cameras and our light. Mangle is able to look into the room using her owl tail, so we must hide behind the Bonnie mask whenever this occurs. If Mangle shows up down the hallway, she must be flashed just as with Foxy. To dispel the ghost, we must shine the camera light on her until she vanishes. These mechanics sound simple enough, but this is a tough fight, and balancing power is tricky. Before we head into the final section of this video, and break down the ending of FNAF Juniors, let's take a quick look at each of the withered animatronics as described in-game. Withered Freddy. During the final act of Juniors, Freddy was torn to shreds, leaving him with only one eye and a massive scar down his right eye. Withered Bonnie. Bonnie's face was torn off by Mangle and used as a mask by the player. Withered Bonnie shares almost identical features to his design in FNAF 2. Withered Chica. Chica's jaw has been torn apart and ripped open much like her design in FNAF 2. She probably got the most damage out of the entire cast. Poor Chica. Withered Foxy. In Junior's final act, Foxy takes quite the beating. His left ear is completely torn off. However, he was already pretty withered to begin with. Withered Balloon Baby. Much like Marinette, Balloon Baby's porcelain head is completely shattered during Junior's final act. The cracks on his face reveal a creepy endoskeleton beneath. Withered Marinette. In Junior's final act, the Marinette is completely shattered by Mangle, revealing her horrifying visage. The Mangle. The Mangle is absolutely giant. Over time, the ghost haunting Junior's building built it as her final form, using different pieces of animatronic endoskeletons to create this monstrosity. During the final act, all the withered animatronics hop on a conveyor system, sacrificing themselves to finish the Mangle. After reaching 6 AM and outlasting the ghost's attempts to merge with Mangle, she instead tries to merge with the protagonist, forcing her way inside his mind to gain access to the Barons and track down PAULBEAR. The ghost girl begins to strangle PAULBEAR, telling him there is no more hiding beneath the costume anymore. This tells us that PAULBEAR is another young child, so who could he be? Well, we are given a few clues as to the identity of this child as we journey through the game. In an earlier cutscene, PAULBEAR mentions how he is very lonely, and only the other spirits keep him company. We also know that PAULBEAR is of timid demeanour, asking the protagonist for help as he is too scared to face the animatronics and Ghost Girl himself. These traits line up perfectly with a very familiar Five Nights at Freddy's character, the Crying Child, commonly believed to be Evan Afton. The Crying Child died at the original Fazbear location, Fredbear's Family Diner, after being stuffed inside Freddy's animatronic mouth by his brother Michael. A prank that went very wrong. After passing away, Crying Child ended up with only the other spirits for company. It all lines up. Even the name PAULBEAR is a play on the word pallbearer, a person who carries a coffin at a funeral. So if PAULBEAR is Crying Child, then who is the Ghost Girl? Well, this is a little harder to pin down. It seems most likely that she is meant to be Cassidy. This is because Cassidy was the most vicious of all the child victims, and would have had a reason to come after Crying Child as he was the son of her murderer, William Afton, the man who robbed her of her life. The ghost tells PAULBEAR she will destroy him and then his little puppet, but before the conversation concludes, she is stabbed in the back by the protagonist. At this point, the story abruptly ends and the following text plays out. After 5 years, JR's would later reopen. It would go over heavy rebranding, as some still had a somewhat negative impression of the company. Fazbear Entertainment is now more committed than ever to family fun and, above all, safety. They spent a small fortune on these new animatronics. Anyway, Jeremy, when do you think you can start? This text seems to be coming from a manager at the newly refurbished Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. New animatronics are mentioned, these referencing the friendly redesigned toy animatronics from FNAF 2. Essentially, this dialogue is a setup for the second game in the FNAF franchise, and the conversation had between management and new employee Jeremy Fitzgerald, the central protagonist of that game. This entire time, Juniors has been the prequel story to FNAF 2, bridging the gap between the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 4, where Crying Child's demise took place, the murders of William